Picture this. January 24, 1948, Krakow, Poland. Inside Montelupich prison, guards walk down a cold stone corridor toward a single cell. The man inside once decided the fate of thousands with nothing more than a nod or a glance. He had sent men, women, and children to their deaths without losing a single night of sleep. But when that cell door swings open, he drops to his knees on the cold floor, sobbing, shaking, and tries to kiss the boots of the guards who came to walk him to the gallows. He begs for mercy. He weeps like a child. They drag him to the rope anyway. His name was Maximilian Grabner, and every person he sent to their death walked with more dignity than he showed in those final 2 minutes. This is their story and his reckoning. Welcome to WW2 Time Tales, where we tell history exactly as it happened. Every detail, every name, every consequence. If you're new here, subscribe right now and hit that bell. We publish powerful stories every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's go back to where this all began. September 1, 1939. 4:45 in the morning, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein opens fire on a small Polish military outpost on the Baltic coast. Shells hit before sentries can raise an alarm. Smoke rises above the harbor. The ground shakes. World War II begins. Aircraft bomb railway lines and cities. Armored columns roll across the Polish border from 3 directions. But the tanks were only half the story. Right behind the front lines came special security squads, carrying pre-written arrest lists, prepared months in advance. The names on them: teachers, priests, lawyers, doctors, military officers, community leaders. Anyone who might one day inspire resistance was marked for elimination before the war was even a week old. Thousands were pulled from their homes within days. Some were shot in forests. Others filled prisons that overflowed overnight. The Nazis needed a permanent solution. In May 1940, they built it, a new concentration camp 60 kilometers west of Krakow in a Polish town called Auschwitz. What began as a detention facility for Polish political prisoners became, within 2 years, the largest killing center in human history. And the man appointed to run its interrogations, its torture chambers, and its executions was a former lumberjack from Vienna named Maximilian Grabner. Grabner was born on October 2, 1905, in Vienna. Working-class family, basic education, no remarkable future on the horizon. In his 20s, he worked as a lumberjack in a country shattered by the First World War. Post-war Austria was unstable. Street violence, mass unemployment, a desperate hunger for order. By 1930, Grabner had joined the Austrian police, working his way up to criminal investigator at Vienna headquarters. He had a stable career and a secure future, and he threw all of it behind the most violent ideology of the 20th century. On August 1, 1932, he joined the Nazi Party, which was still illegal in Austria. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate choice. When the Anschluss occurred on March 12, 1938, and Austria was absorbed into the German Reich, men like Grabner felt vindicated. By September 1938, he had joined both the Gestapo and the SS. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Grabner was posted to the Gestapo office in occupied Katowice, identifying, interrogating, and eliminating enemies of the regime. He was dangerously good at it. In late May 1940, he was handed his most consequential role yet, head of the political department at Auschwitz. When Grabner arrived at Auschwitz in May 1940, the camp held 700 prisoners. By the time he was removed 3 years later, over 150,000 human beings had passed through its gates. His department maintained prisoner records, investigated escapes, and conducted interrogations. His real chain of command ran through Gestapo authorities outside the camp, meaning nobody inside Auschwitz could fully control him. He operated in a power gap and he exploited it completely. The prisoners gave him a name spoken only in whispers: Herrgott von Auschwitz, the Lord God of Auschwitz. Not in admiration. In raw, sleepless terror, because Grabner decided who was tortured, who walked out of Block 11, and who was dragged to the courtyard wall. Block 11 still stands at Auschwitz today. From outside, it looks like any other building. Inside its basement was the bunker, cells barely large enough to stand in, total darkness, and what Grabner's department officially called intensified interrogations. That phrase concealed systematic torture, prisoners beaten with iron rods. Grabner personally told guards iron was more effective than rubber. Prisoners hung upside down, soaked in freezing water, deprived of food and sleep for days, lashed up to 75 strokes until flesh separated from bone. When interrogations ended came the bunker clearings. Prisoners were marched into the courtyard between blocks 10 and 11 and shot against a wall painted black. Thousands died at that wall. On May 27, 1942 alone, 168 prisoners were shot there. Their deaths were recorded as typhus. The Black Wall stands at the Auschwitz Memorial today as one of the most grieved sites on Earth. One episode reveals Grabner's true character more completely than any execution. July 11, 1940. A prisoner named Tadeusz Fichowski becomes the first person to successfully escape from Auschwitz. Grabner's response: he orders all 1,300 prisoners to stand outside without food, water, or toilet access for 20 consecutive hours. Then he walks out and makes them a promise. He tells them he is a reasonable man and mentions pointedly that he is Austrian, not German. Anyone who comes forward with information will be personally protected. No punishment. He gives them his word. Survivor Felix Milke recalled that some prisoners believed him. Some stepped forward, not because they had real information, but because they could not watch their fellow inmates suffer any longer in the cold. Every single one of those prisoners was dead before morning. They had known nothing. They had trusted him out of pure human compassion. Grabner had them beaten, interrogated, and executed anyway. There are moments in history where a person's true soul becomes impossible to deny. That was one of them. From 1942, Auschwitz transformed into something with no parallel in history. A factory built for the systematic mass murder of European Jews. Trains arrived from across the continent, packed into cattle cars for days without food or water. On the arrival platform, SS doctors conducted selections. Those fit for labor entered the camp. The elderly, the young, the sick, and pregnant women were directed to the gas chambers. At the old crematorium in the main camp, Grabner personally delivered speeches to groups about to be gassed. He spoke calmly. He told them to undress for showers, that they would be fed and given work assignments afterward. He performed reassurance as a weapon because panic meant resistance, and resistance slowed the process. The moment the door sealed, Zyklon B was dropped through the ceiling. Grabner's department then filed the paperwork. Cause of death: typhus, heart failure, natural causes. Thousands of murders buried under bureaucratic language. In September 1942, the Nazi regime rewarded him with the War Merit Cross, second class with swords, official recognition that he was performing his duties with excellence. Then came the most extraordinary twist in this entire story. On November 30, 1943, Grabner was arrested, not by the Allies, not by the resistance, by the SS itself. An SS judge named Georg Conrad Morgan, investigating corruption inside concentration camps, had found that Grabner ordered the unauthorized execution of approximately 2,000 prisoners without proper authorization and had been systematically stealing valuables from murdered prisoners, property that officially belonged to the Nazi state. The SS was not arresting him for mass murder. They were arresting him for theft from the Reich. The killings were unauthorized, not because they were wrong, but because the paperwork was missing. That single fact tells you everything about the moral world these men lived in. An SS court in Weimar began proceedings in October 1944, but Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller refused to cooperate. As Germany's military collapse accelerated, the trial was shelved entirely. Grabner was returned to Gestapo service, then transferred to Breslau. When Germany surrendered in May 1945 and the apparatus that had protected him evaporated overnight, he fled to Austria, changed his name, found work as a farmhand, trying to disappear into rural life while the world counted its dead. On August 4, 1945, he was arrested in a field, identified by Heinrich Dürrmayer, the last prisoner leader of Auschwitz itself. The final camp elder personally put the handcuffs on the man who had terrorized them all. In prison, the mask came off entirely. Survivor Hermann Langbein described him as a whining, pitiful coward. In 1946, Grabner gave an official statement containing a sentence historians still quote, I only participated in the murder of 3 million people out of consideration for my family. I was never anti-Semitic. 3 million people, out of consideration for his family. In January 1947, guards found escape preparation materials hidden in his cell, still trying to run. On July 12, 1947, he was extradited to Poland. The Auschwitz trial opened before the Supreme National Tribunal in Krakow on November 24, 1947. Survivor after survivor testified about the torture, the bunker clearings, the gas chamber speeches, and the night he executed every prisoner who had trusted his promise. Witnesses confirmed that prisoners summoned to the political department regularly attempted suicide rather than face what awaited them inside that building. On December 22, 1947, the tribunal found Maximilian Grabner guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced him to death by hanging. 1 month later, the guards came for him, the man who had shot a woman point blank at the death wall when she survived the firing squad by fainting. The man who calmly guided thousands into gas chambers while they thanked him. That man dropped to his knees in his cell, sobbing and shaking, reaching out trying to kiss the boots of the guards. He begged until they lifted him physically from the floor, walked him to the gallows, and placed the rope around his neck. Maximilian Grabner, the Lord God of Auschwitz, was hanged on January 24, 1948. He was 42 years old. Every single person he sent to the Black Wall died with more dignity than he showed in his final moments. That is the true judgment of history. These stories don't end when the war ends. They echo forward through every generation. Every name spoken, every crime documented, every victim remembered, is an act of resistance against forgetting. That is what WW2 Time Tales is built for. If this story moved you, subscribe right now. Hit the like button. Drop a comment below and tell us, do you think justice was truly served? We read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the moment we stop telling these stories, history begins to repeat itself. We'll see you in the next one, right here on WW2 Time Tales.